predict. And that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. Stage 5 is the event that turns a vulnerable market into a collapsing market. It's the match that lights the fuse. Here's what most people get wrong about triggers. They think the trigger causes the crash. It doesn't. The crash is caused by stages 1 through 4. The debt, the concentration, the smart money exit, the liquidity drain. Those create the conditions for collapse. The trigger just determines when. In 1929, the trigger was the Hatry case. Clarence Hatry was a British financier who got arrested for fraud in September. Nobody in America cared. It seemed irrelevant. But British banks had exposure to Hatry. They had to raise cash. So they sold their American investments. That selling created more selling. Within weeks, the market was in freefall. A minor British fraud case triggered the Great Depression, not because the fraud mattered, but because the system was so fragile that any shock would have done it. In 2008, the trigger was Lehman Brothers. But it could have been Bear Stearns, or AIG, or any number of other institutions. The system was primed to explode. Lehman was just the spark. So what's the trigger going to be this time? I don't know. Nobody knows. That's the nature of triggers. It could be geopolitical, a real escalation in Taiwan, something unexpected in the Middle East, a miscalculation with Russia. It could be financial, a major hedge fund blowing up, a sovereign debt crisis in Europe or Asia, a derivatives accident. And remember, the derivatives market is over $600 trillion in notional value. One major counterparty failure could cascade through the entire system. It could be something in the banking system, more regional banks failing, a run on a major institution, a crisis in commercial real estate that takes down the lenders who financed it. It could be political, a constitutional crisis, a debt ceiling standoff that goes wrong, a loss of confidence in the dollar. Or it could be something nobody is talking about. That's usually how it works. The trigger is never the thing everyone is worried about. It's the thing nobody sees coming. What I do know is this. When stages 1 through 4 are all flashing red, the trigger usually arrives within 12 to 24 months. We've had 4 stages confirmed since late 2024. That puts the window somewhere in 2025 or 2026. Now let me tell you what this doesn't mean. I'm not telling you the market is going to crash tomorrow. Timing is impossible. Markets can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. Anyone who tells you they know exactly when the crash is coming is lying. I'm also not telling you to sell everything and hide in a bunker. That's not a strategy. That's panic. What I am telling you is that the conditions which preceded every major crash in the last 100 years are present right now. All 5 stages are either active or imminent. This is not normal. This is not a drill. The question isn't whether you believe me. The question is what you're going to do with this information. Roger Babson didn't just predict the 1929 crash. He prepared for it. While everyone else was leveraged to the hilt, he held cash. While everyone else bought stocks at the top, he bought farmland and hard assets. When the crash came, he was positioned to survive and thrive. Irving Fisher, the genius economist who mocked Babson, lost everything. His fortune, his reputation, his legacy. He spent the rest of his life trying to recover and never did. The difference between them wasn't intelligence. Fisher was probably smarter. The difference was that Babson paid attention to the signals. He respected the pattern. He positioned himself for what was coming instead of what he wished would happen. You have the same choice right now. You can look at the data I just showed you and decide it doesn't apply to you. Markets always recover eventually, right? This time could be different. Or you can ask yourself some uncomfortable questions. How much of your wealth is in the stock market right now? Not just your brokerage account, your retirement accounts, your pension if you have one, your home equity if you live in a bubble market. How much of that is concentrated in a handful of mega-cap tech stocks? How much of your financial security depends on prices staying where they are or going higher? If the market dropped 50% over the next 18 months, which is what happened in 2008, would you be okay? Would you lose your retirement? Would you have to delay your plans by a decade? I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a historian. I study patterns. And the pattern is clear. The people who get destroyed in crashes aren't stupid. They're just unprepared. They trust the experts who tell them everything is fine. They believe the system is more stable than it is. They assume someone would warn them if something was really wrong. Nobody warned them in 1929. Nobody warned them in 2008. Nobody's going to warn you now. The warning is the pattern itself, and now you know it. What you do next is up to you. If this video helped you see something you didn't see before, subscribe and turn on notifications. I'm going to be breaking down each of these 5 stages in more detail over the coming weeks, including the specific data points you can track yourself. Knowledge isn't power. Applied knowledge is power. The crash of 1929 didn't have to destroy so many lives. The signals were there. The pattern was clear. People chose not to see it. Don't make the same choice.